You have an unresolved disappearance. You've tried billboards, flyers, psychics, private investigators with little or no progress. Likewise, the searches have failed. The police aren't responding the way they once did. Calls go unanswered. Emails go unanswered. Requests for information are met with, "It's still an ongoing investigation." After studying over 400 disappearances and interviewing nearly 1,000 family members, I've learned something important. Most families are more than capable of moving their investigations forward if they are given the right tools. I'm Ed Dunsel. For the past 10 years, I've analyzed missing persons cases from all over the world, identifying patterns that are often overlooked by others. My goal is to help you better understand what is likely happening in your case. Identify productive next steps. Avoid wasting time and money. And bring structure and clarity to an emotionally overwhelming situation. If you're looking for thoughtful, experienced analysis of your disappearance case, visit missingpersonsconsulting.com to learn more. Unfound has now covered over 420 disappearances over the course of over 600 episodes. It has an interview-based format and concentrates on the facts, not the theories. Today, and for the 24th time, I will take you back to the beginning, then right up to the present, as I cover updates over the past 4 months pertaining to some of Unfound's cases. I'm Ed Dunsel, and this is Unfound. But first, Unfound news. It's the end of the month, so you know what that means. Look for the newest episode of Unfound now on the YouTube channel, where I analyze a recent disappearance. And for all of the Patreon and YouTube supporters, look for the newest episode of Found. Next, a week from now, Unfound will be celebrating its 10-year anniversary. Not too many podcasts last this long. Tune in to hear the first interview I ever did, along with me looking back at the past decade. Finally, September 1st starts a 30-day plan to put my short TV series package together. Something like True Detective, but way better. By the end of the month, I should have something presentable to producers and companies. Okay, for anybody who is new out there, Unfound is getting new listeners all the time. I realize many of you have been down the update episode path many, many times before. I mean, this is number 24, so many of you have heard them before. But for all of you who are new, here's how this works. What I do in leading up to the recording of these update episodes, I go back through all of Unfound's, now over 400 of them, and to see if there are any updates over the past 4 months. So anything that you're going to hear are updates to Unfound's cases going back to the beginning of May of 2026. So it very well could be that I mention an episode or a missing person in this update, but this person could have been mentioned in an earlier update episode for some other reason. So if I mention anybody in the upcoming list, it only has to do with anything that has occurred over the past 4 months. All right? That's important to understand, because many of these have had updates in the past, Go back to 23, 22, 21. Some of them, no. But for each update episode, it only contains updates for the preceding 4 months. In addition, what I do is I find those updates, put a list here on the computer, on the screen, and I will go in the order in which Unfound covered that disappearance. What I will do is I will read the intro for that particular episode. That's that little paragraph that I read at the beginning of every Unfound episode, kind of just the most general of facts. So I will read that, and then I will go into whatever the update is. And how I handle that is I just have notes. There are a couple articles that I actually will be reading word for word, but for the most part, I find out what the update is, what the new information is, and I just make some notes on the screen to kind of cue me as to, oh, here's what happened. And then I fill in the rest of the words myself. So if there's some ums, you knows, and pregnant pauses and everything else, please understand. But like I said, there will be at least a couple of these updates where there have been articles written, and I will read those articles. What you also get in these update episodes that you do not get in the regular update episodes is I do offer some commentary, my insights into what my theory is for the disappearance, because sometimes I think that helps all of you understand the significance of that update. Maybe it's an update that it doesn't have much significance, or it's very significant. And I will try to put it in the proper context by explaining what I think about the disappearance and where things might go from here. That's just an example. All right, let's get started. First update, Susie Lyle. Suzanne Lyle was a 19-year-old student at the University of New York at Albany. She was a computer major, but also a passionate poet who loved sharing her writing with others. On the night of March 2nd, 1998, she got off the bus at the Collins Circle stop on university property and headed toward her dorm. She was never seen again. The update is that, of course, next week, Unfound will be celebrating its 10-year anniversary. It's crazy. And once again, if you are new to Unfound, the way I do that is I replay the first interview I ever did as the host of Unfound. And that was with Susie's mother, Mary, who I still talk to this day, maybe once every 6 months, something like that. She's been very supportive. So, of course, we only celebrate the anniversary one time a year, and it just coincidentally is going to be next week. It's the first Friday of September. I think technically, going back to 2016, I think it was September 2nd. That's also my brother Brian's birthday. Pretty sure it was September 2nd, but I just make it easy. The first Friday of September is the anniversary for Unfound, and so next week, 10 years, and you will hear that first interview with Mary Lyle. I've talked about Susie's disappearance many times over the year, both on update episodes and on the live show elsewhere. I continue to believe that somebody connected to her on-again, off-again boyfriend at the time, or maybe, when I say connected, maybe his father, somebody like that. Of course, the father of this young man did act very strange. I even knew that way back then, just getting into this, when I first started getting into disappearances as work. That guy's behavior certainly was odd. You can go back, if you've not yet listened to that episode, you can go do it before next Friday, or you could just wait till next Friday. I continue to believe that. I realize that there is a significant minority of people who think that Israel Keys could be responsible. Certainly no facts to support that. I think the odds of that are very, 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 very low. So that is the update. Just letting all of you know, next week, 10-year anniversary, Susie Lyle, my interview with her mother Mary, will be contained in that episode, that interview I did in August of 2016. Moving on. Next update. I think this is the first time this missing woman has ever been contained in an update episode. Not totally sure, somewhat sure. Rosemarie Gayhart. Rosemarie Gayhart was a 23-year-old native New Yorker who moved to Cape Coral, Florida, with her boyfriend. She had a large family with many siblings who cared about her and were concerned with her moving away. On March 14th, 1985, somebody in a red pickup truck allegedly picked her up after work. She was never seen again. This is probably one of the biggest updates for this episode, and that is that Rosemarie's remains have been identified. They were found a while ago, and they have now been positively identified. So this is one of the updates where I'm actually going to read an article. This comes from the website capecops.com. So CAPECOPS.com. The Cape Coral Police Department has new information related to the 1985 disappearance of 23-year-old Rosemarie Gayhart. In 1985, Gayhart was reported missing by her parents who lived in Dansville, New York. She was last known to be living and working in the Cape Coral/North Fort Myers area at the time. In May of 2024, so just over 2 years ago, human remains were discovered by kayakers in a canal in northeast Cape Coral. In May of 2026, the Cape Coral Police Department Violent Crimes Unit received confirmation that the remains belonged to Gayhart. The identification was confirmed with the assistance of the District 21 Medical Examiner's Office. The Livingston County Sheriff's Office in New York played an integral role and secured the familia DNA used to confirm the identity of the remains. The area where the remains were located was excavated with the assistance of the Cape Coral Department of Public Works, Lee County Sheriff's Office, Broward County Sheriff's Office, and the District 21 Medical Examiner's Office. For more than 40 years, Rosemarie Gayhart's family has carried the weight of not knowing what happened to her. While this identification brings long-awaited answers, it also strengthens our resolve. No matter how much time passes, even after 4 decades, our investigations do not stop, and our pursuit of justice does not end. This is now considered an active homicide investigation, and we are committed to following every lead. We are deeply grateful to our law enforcement partners and the Medical Examiner's Office for helping us reach this point. And we ask anyone with information to come forward so we can bring accountability and closure to this case and to the family. That comes from Chief Anthony Sizemore. This remains an open homicide investigation. So that's the article. And you should know there are many articles that were written back in May. So this happened not long after the previous update episode came out. Many articles have been written. I just picked this one. I realize one may have little information here and there, but I think that this captures the gist of the update. Now, I think I got this one right. You know, I take great pride in being able to predict the resolutions to disappearances. And I was mostly believing that Rosemarie was not with us anymore and had not been with us alive on this planet for quite a while. I think this confirms that. Now, you should know, at the time, though, back when the episode came out, that there was a belief, well, maybe the guy who had gone with her to Florida and she had been living with him and his mother, and he did something to her, and then, of course, he moved back to New York, and if you listen to that interview, go back and listen to the Gay Heart episode. You will hear her sister talk about that, really suspecting him. I don't think he had anything to do with this. I think the police, once again, if you were to look at some articles, they're looking at a serial killer that was in the area at the time. And they might have even determined that he did have that type of vehicle, a red pickup, at that time. And it's possible that she met this guy somehow. So that seems promising to me. Very well, it could be nothing. And as it says, it's still an open homicide investigation. It seems they're still open to different ideas, but this particular guy, I'm not going to use his name because we don't know, but his name is out there if you want to check. But they're looking into him as being a possibility. Now, the other question, though, is, well, if she really was in this canal for all these years, almost 40 years, then why is it that she was just seen now in a canal? Remember, this is not a river. You have to remember, here in Florida, we have a lot of canals. You fly over Florida, you're going to see a lot of little ponds and lakes. You have to remember that the water table in Florida is very high. That's why we don't have any basements in Florida. So you have a lot of these little canals that run through communities. Some of them are man-made, some of them aren't. And you may be wondering, well, if this is the kind of canal where people can kayak, how is it that previous kayakers didn't see her remains? I don't know if we have I haven't seen a specific answer to that, but you might want to think about this. Despite Florida being a hurricane state, and at least during the summer into the fall, it seems like we get rain every day. Florida, at least down here in the Clearwater and South area, because this area is like 2.5 hours, where she was found is like 3 hours south of me, something like that on the Gulf Coast. Technically, we are in drought conditions. You wouldn't know that driving around or anything, but I guess we are. And so I'm open to the idea that being that we've been in drought conditions, maybe the water in this canal not as high as it usually has been in past years. And remember, this was in 2024. This was before the hurricanes came through from Milton and Helene from last year. And very well may be that the water was down in this canal, and there you go. We have some kayakers that go through there just at the right place at the right time. So I think that very much like what is now being experienced, there has been going on for a while with like Lake Mead out there near Las Vegas, where as the water drops, they find skeletons. In fact, there was just a story I saw about that. I think we have to be open to the idea that this is what has happened here. That her remains were thrown into this canal back in 1985. And at the time, the water was up. And then over time, the water has dropped in the last few years due to drought conditions. And there you go. Now, what I've not done the description is not precise enough for me to even know. I've not gotten on a map to see, well, where is this canal compared to where she was working that day? I've not done anything like that, so I don't know. I don't know if you could do it anyway. I don't know if the location is precise enough, if they've described it precisely enough to even be able to tell. But I have to say, going back and looking at the disappearance, she's at work. She gets picked up by somebody who is a question mark. I don't think it's a big shock to know that she was deceased. And given that she was found there, it's reasonable to think that she was murdered. By who? I don't know if they'll ever be able to prove that. But Rosemary Gayheart, she's been found deceased. Am I surprised by this? Kinda. This would not have been very high on my list of remains being found, to be honest with you, but I guess I was wrong, at least on that. All right, moving on. Next update, Regina Marie Bose, or Boz. I've heard, now these days I've heard it pronounced a couple different ways. I think for the last 10 years I've been saying Boz or Boss, but on a show I recently appeared on, the other guy pronounced it Bose, so I've never been corrected when saying Boz, so I just guess I'm going to keep saying it that way, and until I'm properly corrected. Of course, I had Regina's sister on way back when, and she did not say it was pronounced another way, so... Anyway, Regina Marie Boss. Regina Marie Boss was a mother of 3 from Lincoln, Nebraska. On the evening of October 16th, 2000, she attended an open mic night at Dugan's Pub. At 1 a.m., she left the venue to go home. She was never seen again. Now, the update here is, first of all, I appeared on another show back in, when was it, June or early July? In June it was. And that show is called The Midnight Mystery Archive, and it's hosted by a guy. His name is Kevin. I'm hoping you've checked that out by now. If not, please go find it. And he had contacted me in June, and he wanted to cover Regina's disappearance. And he had been in contact with, I actually got him in contact with her sister, and they were able to have a conversation, and I think he ended up talking to her and interviewing her as well. But he invited me to come on to his show to talk about Regina's disappearance, and I thought it went really, really well. So that's one of the updates. Maybe the bigger update is something I learned about her disappearance that was not discussed in my original coverage, Unfound's original coverage going way back to 2016. Somehow I missed that. I think this is one of those things I'd like to think here in 2026, if I was doing that same interview, that I wouldn't miss it, because it's a fairly important piece of information. And that is, that night when Regina was at this open mic night, one of her ex-husbands was there. And I know what you're saying, Ed, you missed that? Yeah, I did. You missed that in the original interview with her sister? I did. And nobody is more ticked off about it than I am. But it's fantastic that Kevin caught on to that. He found that piece of information somewhere, and he did verify it with Regina's sister when they spoke. So yeah, when Kevin spoke to Janelle, she said, yeah, why I missed it, I don't know. So Regina's at this open mic night. I have it's not clear to me, even though we now know it's new information to me that they ran into each other there. I still don't know, did this one ex-husband, she had 2 ex-husbands, I think it was the first one. Did he know she was going to be there? I don't know. Had they run into each other at this open mic night before? I don't know. What kind of relationship were they having at the time? I don't know. But what? Let's just put it out there. What are the odds that on a night that she runs into one of her ex-husbands that she goes missing? You don't have to be a missing persons expert to look at that and say, No, I don't know. I think that in looking at the disappearance before I knew about this, I was open to the idea that the man that was in Regina's life at the time, of course, he said he was home. Is that alibi rock solid? I don't think it is. But who does have an alibi for 1 a.m, usually? And I also have thrown around the idea that some guy who she didn't know saw her, knew she was alone, followed her out to the parking lot, and then abducted her as she was putting her guitar, other things into her car. Remember, the trunk of her car was a little bit open. I think it was a Saturn of some type. Remember that car company? But knowing that one of her exes was there, certainly have to add him into the lineup, I guess you could say. So that is new information. It would be helpful if we knew more about their connection. Did they have any kids together? Was he abusive to her? Why did they get divorced? What has he done with his life since? All of this information would be very, very helpful. But I don't know it as of the recording of this update episode, and this portion of the update episode is being recorded on August 25th of 2026. So if this is just new information to you too, finding out one of the ex-husbands was there that night, this gives you an opportunity to ponder it as well. Moving on. Next update, Claudia Wells. Claudia Leslie Wells was a single woman living in Maryville, Illinois. She was supposed to be taking care of her mother, who had recently gotten a broken hip. Sometime in the middle of January of 1995, Claudia left, not letting anyone know where she was going. She was never seen. Actually, she was seen again. Now, the update is that we revisited her disappearance not too long ago as part of what's been going on this summer. Of course, we had the very long 2.5-month Atlantic series, but this summer I did squeeze in a couple revisitation episodes, and this is one of them. And if you're wondering, when I have to, I guess, quote-unquote have to, put a revisitation episode up, I'm just going in order. If you're wondering, I'm just going back to the old episodes and kind of going in order at this point. But Claudia Wells, we rebroadcast that with the original interview with her daughter, and then in the think tank, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast, if you'd like to take part, we finally got to talk about Claudia Wells' disappearance and seemingly her moving to San Diego, and then seemingly her being in the Santa Monica area, and then when people go missing looking for her, she can't be found. I have to be honest, and I wrote about this once again at patreon.com. I write the blog every week. It's in both written and audio form. It's like getting a second Unfound podcast every week, but I espouse, spouse, is that the word? I write and talk about my insights into the disappearance way more than you get in the regular Friday episode. I offer my opinions, and then I even make a prediction what I think was going on with the disappearance. If that sounds interesting to you, of course, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. But what I wrote there here in 2026 is that given all of my experience now and all the people I've spoken to and all the disappearances covered and reading so much disappearance news, I think there are reasons to doubt a lot about Claudia's disappearance after 1995. I don't mean to be negative. I'm not trying to be a know-it-all. But there are things that stick out to me, especially regarding this picture that was taken of an older woman in Santa Monica and the reporter and all of that. This is something that I did not do for the original coverage, but I did do for the revisitation episode because I knew I was going to be writing about it, at least 3,000 words on it. And it's just very, very thin. The whole thing about the reporter going there and this woman saying these things. And then remember what happened is this story was done, and then later, a year later, a couple years later, it was Claudia's daughter who somehow came across this picture, thought it was her mother, and then they kind of worked everything backwards. The reporter was tracked down. It's so thin. Why? Because you have to first realize, regarding this article in which this woman's picture was in it, I went back and found the article. This woman is not, this homeless woman, if that is what she was not quoted at all. Her name isn't written in the caption for the picture. Her age is not given. All of this information that supposedly this woman gave to this reporter while they were doing the story in like 2012 is not included in the story. And all of this stuff didn't come up till a couple years later. And so, did the reporter just remember this stuff? Did she have recordings of talking to this woman that she could reference from a couple years before that? Did she take notes? No idea. And then, of course, on top of that, well, if she did that, why isn't it included in the original article? Because that's usually how homeless persons' articles are done. They go out, they talk to the people who don't have, what we would call regular homes, houses to stay. The reporters get the names, they get the predicament that got them into this situation and all of that. That is not in this article at all. So then I start wondering, is all this about this woman being Claudia Wells, is it not just about confirmation bias? And could it be that the reporter, when approached by Claudia's daughter, just couldn't pass up the opportunity for some publicity to bring back a story from a couple years before that? Now that I've been a reporter for 10 years, I think that's highly possible. I can't rule out the idea that when the reporter was approached by Claudia's daughter, that, as we know, reporters do this too, professional reporters, they make things up. Of course, I have the stereotypical making up of a story. A little girl goes missing, and then a 7-Eleven clerk calls in. Oh, yeah, I saw the picture of that little girl. She was in here, and she was with some guy, and here's what he looked like. And when the guy wasn't looking, the little girl mouthed to me, "Help me." And then they left, and then I called 911. Well, the police go down there, the siren's blaring, lights flash, and they get in there, look at the videotape, and no one was there. This happens more than you realize. A lot of people just make stuff up for all sorts of reasons. So it just seems so thin. This whole 2012 Santa Monica, this woman, it just seems so thin. I'm not going to go as far as to say that she wasn't in San Diego years before that with a social security number and all that. But I have to admit, even that is starting to feel a little shaky to me. Because we have to add something on top of all of this. Because as soon as this was found out, everybody then went starting looking for Claudia. Once this article, they looked back at this article and all this information came out, they went looking for Claudia. No one could find her. This woman claiming to be Claudia or whatever fake name she was using. They were looking for the woman in this picture. Couldn't find her. And when it comes to missing persons cases, I always get a little suspicious when there's somebody who's homeless out there, is around all the time, and then when the people start looking for the person can't be found. I start wondering, well, did this person really exist in the first place? Was this person really homeless? My mind starts going a lot of different directions, and really just it amounts to, was this really the missing person at all? as I've said many times, it pays to be cynical in this business. So there you go. That's the update for Claudia Wells. That being, we revisited her disappearance this summer of 2026. Next update, Peggy and Patty McDaniel. Peggy and Patty McDaniel were 17-year-old sisters from New Jersey staying with their father in Live Oak, Florida. Unbeknownst to their parents, in mid-August of 1979, they took a trip to the Fort Lauderdale area. And a month later, on September 15th, the sisters were supposed to go to a club in Pompano Beach with a man they met. A few days later, this man was found shot dead. The girls were never seen again. Just to follow up on that description, the murder connected to Peggy and Patty's disappearances, that murder still unsolved. The update, once again, this was a revisitation episode from just a month or 6 weeks ago. And on top of that, I spoke to Joyce, their mother, recently. I have to admit, I hope no particular guest feels too bad about what I'm about to say, but Joyce Rivituzzo is one of my favorite Unfound guests of all time. She and I have become very close, and I've really gotten to know her well, even well outside the disappearances of her daughters. And I got to meet Joyce way back in December of 2017. And as when this revisitation episode came out, I stated that this, early on in Unfound's existence, this was one of the big successes. And it's still probably in the top 10 of notable moments in Unfound's history. Of course, we have to put up there like all the Tom Brown stuff. And then Steve Pankey, maybe put Cameron Remmer, the work I did on that for like a year before the episode came out later that year. Certainly there have been some big moments, big episodes. And this was probably one of the early ones that, has gotten into the top 10. The reason I say this is because when I first got to their disappearances, I think everybody had forgotten the two sisters went missing. Could only find one of their pictures online. I don't even think they were listed on the Charlie Project. They might have been on NamUs, but weren't on the Charlie Project. And now when you do a search for them, you can get all the information you ever want to get. Of course, they're still missing. Very sad. But that revisitation episode, you can go back and listen to it. I get into a lot of other things there. But now, since, of course, that was done in 2017, I don't think one other YouTube channel, podcast had done anything regarding their disappearances, but certainly quite a few have since. And so it was a big moment, and we revisited it recently, got to talk to Joyce about that, and talked about a bunch of other stuff. She and I had not spoken in a while. But that is the update. Of course, the two men who took Peggy and Patty, one of them is now deceased. The other one is still alive. I have to admit, in thinking about their disappearances all these years, I think that I was really locked into one particular theory, that the two had seen the murder of this Nelson guy, and thus Peggy and Patty needed to, and they were witnesses, had to get rid of them. I'm not as locked into that theory anymore, but I still believe that their disappearances and the murder of this guy are connected somehow. Next update. Shannon Turner, of course, this revisitation episode just came out. Shannon Rayanne Turner was a 33-year-old woman from Indianapolis, Indiana. She was a free spirit who could travel wherever her heart took her. On December 4th, 1997, she went to work at Babe's Showgirls, but did not come home after. She was never seen again. Like I said, we just revisited this disappearance, her disappearance last week. And the update that I want to include in this is something that I happened upon. If you need a way to think, the way I now think about Shannon's disappearance, and this probably only occurred to me because I'm now watching The Sopranos. I got HBO Max, and now I've gone back from the beginning and started watching The Sopranos. That I see Shannon Turner very much like how I see Adriana Lacerva. Of course, she was the fiancée of Christopher Moltisanti. I don't know when that maybe was season 2 or season 1, season 2 of the show. And then, not to ruin it for everybody, spoilers ahead. But eventually, she gets in some trouble. She becomes an FBI informant, and then she tells Christopher about it, and then she is taken out and executed because of it. In the show, they think that she just disappeared, but that's not what happened. And I'm not saying that Shannon Turner was an FBI informant. That would certainly be news to me. What I'm saying is, I see them similarly because both these women, of course, Adriana being fictional and Shannon being real, they were around men, dangerous men. And I think that in both situations, they liked that. I don't think that Shannon was being forced to be in a relationship with David Mays and whoever else. She wasn't. She was free to leave. Of course, she was a dancer. She was free to go here, free to go there, here, there, wherever. Yes, I know these guys could be controlling and violent and everything else, but she wasn't chained in a basement either. And so the same thing with Adriana. She was around the Sopranos and Christopher. She knew what they were doing. She knew they were killing people. She knew they were crooked. She knew they were into drugs and all the other stuff that they did on the Sopranos. She chose to be there. She liked it. She wanted to be there. She had all sorts of opportunities to leave if she wanted, even though I know it might be a little dangerous, but she could have done it. Didn't. This is how I view Shannon Turner. That doesn't mean Adriana got what she deserved, and certainly doesn't mean, if we're to believe that Shannon Turner was killed, that doesn't mean that she got what she deserved either. In fact, I've been on the record. I think Adriana Lacerva's murder in The Sopranos is one of the saddest moments on TV ever. Not just for The Sopranos, but for any TV show ever. Given all of the stuff that she put up with and all the lying she did for Christopher and others and trying to manage her life within that atmosphere, her choosing to be in it, and then what happens to her. Tragic. Very sad. I feel the same way about Shannon. I feel the same way. If we're to believe that she was killed. Very sad. The other update is I did speak to her brother Greg. I think it was after the previous update episode, so I'm thinking sometime in May or June. Some of you maybe have noticed he posts in the discussion group, and I talked about that in the episode last week. He and I talked, 45 minutes. To be honest with you, I don't think he got much out of it. I just don't think that he and I see eye to eye on some things. He's certainly on the whole Indianapolis Police Department is corrupt and everything, and that's not really something I want to get into. So I did my best. It's his sister. He's free to do what he wants. Try to help him out. I just don't think he really took much of what I had to say to heart, and I don't take it personally. It's up to him and that's up to any guest. If they come to me for advice, I will give it to them. If they don't take it, I wish they would, but I don't feel overtly bad about it. This is their family member or their friend. For me, this is work. I care, But they're ultimately the people who have to make the decisions. So, there you go. That's the update. We revisited it, kind of giving you a little bit of insight. Maybe if you're familiar with The Sopranos and what happened to Adriana, you can identify, relate to that. And then, of course, talking to Greg. Moving on. Next update, Amanda DeGuio. I think this could be the first time she's ever been mentioned on an update episode. Amanda DeGuio was a 24-year-old from Upper Darby Township in Pennsylvania. It's kind of over near Philadelphia. She was the mother of two and had just come back from a Disney family vacation. In the early hours of June 3rd, 2014, she left her home. Amanda would leave home for a few days at a time, but would always return. This time, she was never seen again. Amanda had an addiction problem that she was fighting. She would get sober and then relapse. And this was one of the times that she had gotten sober. She went on this trip, but it does seem that once she got back to Pennsylvania after this Disney trip, that she relapsed. So what is the update? Well, what I saw, of course, is a developing story in Philadelphia about this father and son. Their last names being Horsch, Horsch. The father is now deceased, but I think investigators over there in Philadelphia, up there, I guess I'm in Florida, up there in Florida. I'm thinking like I'm still living in the Pittsburgh area. Up there in Philadelphia are now attaching several women's disappearances to these two guys. And it has been put out, could Amanda DeGuio be one of those? It's been written about, it's theorized, and so you're going to see this, and so that's that's really the update. Her name is now prominent in Philadelphia news again because of everything that's going on. And I'm not here to get into the minute details of this, what they're calling a Philadelphia House of Horrors, although I did talk about it on the most recent live show on YouTube that is a podcast right on this feed. What do I think? I really don't know. My perception is that these women who went missing, in one way or another, knew the Horsch father and son. In fact, one of the women, Amy McHale, used to be married to the father. So I think for me to start buying into this, I think they would have to establish at least a loose connection between Amanda and these two guys. That would certainly help. What I haven't done, and I should also say the other thing, is that it seems that these women were in the general area of where these Horsch guys were. What I haven't done is, where was Amanda DeGuio living at the time? I think that she was living at least with her mother, if not both of her parents. They were all living under the same roof at the time. So where is that? I probably have looked at that at one point, maybe even going back to when this episode came out in 2017 or 2018, whenever it was. Probably did that. I don't remember where that is now, where she lived now. Is that close to where they were? I don't know. No, if that turns out to be true, okay, because the way I remember this disappearance, it's not like she took off in a car. She just walked away. So where exactly did she go? Now, if I were to find out where the Horsches were living in 2014, were within walking distance, and what I mean within walking distance, let's say within an hour walking, then that's really catches my attention. Otherwise, not as much. I'd also want to know, well, when they were looking into Amanda's disappearance, did the Horsch name ever come up? That also might be something. I think what would be a mistake, and I did look this up on NamUs, there are 18 women who went missing in the Philadelphia area within the general demographics of these women who have already been named. Between 2010 and 2025, of course, Amanda being one of those, I think it would be a mistake to start saying, oh, look at all these women. Well, the horses are responsible for all of them. I think that is very unlikely. So you just can't jump to that conclusion. I think you need a lot more than that. And I just haven't seen a lot more yet for Amanda being connected to everything that's now being discovered. Very well could be. I just haven't seen. It's just a theory right now, and I think a very general one at this point. Moving on. Next update, Flight 370. MH370 was a Malaysian Airlines flight originating in Kuala Lumpur. Its destination was Beijing, China. On the night of March 8th, 2014, while flying over the South China Sea, all of its communication equipment was shut off, making it invisible to air traffic control. An hour later, Malaysian military radar tracked the flight heading northwest up the Malacca Strait. Flight 370 was never seen again. Of course, the jet is still missing. There have been several documentaries and YouTube channels, etc., that have analyzed this disappearance. It probably is the most well-known, the most bizarre disappearance, at least of the 21st century, especially when you consider how well jets can be tracked these days, even going back to 2014, which really is not that long ago. The update is, first of all, Jeff Wise, who was the guest way back when, continues to run his channel on YouTube discussing Flight 370, and he continues to have new guests on there looking at the disappearance from a variety of angles. I have assisted him behind the scenes in him talking to some people I know kind of outside the realm of aviation, but people who I thought could help him with like the psychology side of all of this and the law side of it. So I've put Jeff in contact with some of them, and I think that they have spoken. I don't know what the results of those talks were, but I think they have spoken. And he, like I said, he continues to get new people to interview regarding Flight 370. And maybe most interesting, recently he interviewed a guy who found another plane, a plane that had been missing for decades, another passenger plane, but I think a propeller plane, that had been missing for quite a while, maybe since the 1950s, and this guy was able to track it down using sonar and other equipment. Jeff had that guy on Jeff's YouTube channel, so that's like one of the most recent episodes. The other update, though, is I appeared on Jeff's channel a couple months ago, and the way that happened was I had sent him an email several months ago, where I had asked him, well, have you ever looked at other prominent jets that have gone missing to try to compare and contrast between all of them and Flight 370? And this could be, I think I picked out a variety of disappearances of jets. And what I mean by that, either passenger planes with many people on them or actual commercial jets that have gone missing, like maybe a cargo plane or something like that are still missing to this day. And I found, I think, around 10 of them. It's more maybe than you might expect. And he said, I don't think he had really done that, but in doing so, one of the planes that I listed was the 1990 disappearance of a Fawcett, Peru Boeing 727 that was being brought back on like a transfer flight from Europe back to Peru. Well, the way you go from Europe to Peru, you go up along the North Atlantic by Iceland, Greenland, you come down along the coast of the United States, and you eventually fly south to Peru. Well, this jet went missing over the North Atlantic. It still has yet to be found. And Jeff had never heard about this disappearance. I've known about it for a long time because, once again, my interest in plane crashes, disappearances goes back decades. And because of that, he wanted to talk about that. So I appeared on his channel a couple months ago, and we discussed the disappearance of this Boeing 727. To be clear, this was not... It's a Boeing 727, of course, was a passenger jet that are not much used anymore. But it was not a commercial flight. There were several people on it, maybe less than 20. But they were not what we would call paying passengers. I think these were, of course, the pilots and other people who worked for this airline who were all being brought back from Europe where the jet was being used. And something happened. So that jet and the people are still missing, I guess very much like Flight 370. So I was on there, had a good time talking to Jeff about that. So you can find that on Jeff Wise's YouTube channel. The channel is simply called Jeff Wise, Wise. And that's where the disappearance, to my knowledge, stands. Jeff continues to stake out his position that the plane was hijacked, not by the pilot, but by a couple of passengers, and then taken in a different direction, that it did not crash into the Indian Ocean. And it's a very controversial theory. He's taking a lot of crap for that. But that is still his standpoint on it. And maybe one of these days we'll actually find out. I think knowing Jeff the way I've gotten to know him, I think that we've become very good friends, even though we've never met in person, that he's not so, he's willing to be wrong. He'd rather it get solved and he be wrong than it never gets solved and he just continues to talk about it. I think that Jeff is still very objective on this. He wants to know what happened, and I certainly think that if it turns out that it is in the Indian Ocean or somewhere else, and it's not his theory, I think that Jeff will be perfectly fine with that. He'll own up to it, and I'm sure he will look back at all the analysis he's done over the years and try to figure out, well, where did I go wrong? I believe that's the kind of guy Jeff Wise is. So if you haven't yet checked out his YouTube channel, please do so. Next update, and this is very sad news. This is for Dominique Holly Grisham. Once again, I'm not sure that he's ever been included on an update episode before. Dominique Tyshawn Holly Grisham was a 16-year-old from Rochester, New York. He was the second oldest son and an excellent athlete. On Saturday, February 12th, 2009, his hockey team won their championship. To celebrate, his mother planned a party for that evening. While she was out shopping, Dominique got a call. He then left his house. He was never seen again. The update is that a brother of Dominique, I think, being that I just read it was the second oldest son of Dominique's mother, I think this is the oldest son. He died. I'm not sure under what circumstances. But this happened, I think, within of course, since the last update episode, but to be more specific, I think within the last 2 months, I think I think it happened in July, I think. Not sure what happened. I am friends, of course, with Moselle, Dominique's mother, and she'd posted about it, of course, devastated. But another tragedy striking the Holly Grisham family. Very, very sad. It seems to me, my perception of this, his name was Jaquan, Jaquan Lamar Holly Grisham. My perception is this was something that was sudden. It doesn't seem to me like he'd had cancer or something, and it was a long downhill trend. It seemed like it was very sudden, so very, very sad. Our condolences go out to Moselle and the rest of the Holly Grisham family. As far as Dominique's disappearance, my attitude on his disappearance, I don't think has changed since the episode played way back when, like 2018 or maybe even 2017. That I believe that his disappearance had something to do with Dominique and the girlfriend that he had at the time breaking up. I'm not blaming necessarily her or anything, but I still think that is connected to his disappearance somehow. And if you've not yet listened to that episode, go back and listen to it. And let me know what you think. Of course, anybody can reach me at any time at unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. Next update, and I'm pretty sure this is the first kind of update I've ever done in Unfound's history. Pretty sure. I've been waiting for it for quite a while, and now it has happened. Somebody has done an AI analysis of one of Unfound's disappearances and published it. I do not think, I'm not saying it's never been done. I just haven't seen it, and it was published for everybody to see, and that's what this update is. Very interesting. And the disappearance that was analyzed is Kristen Modafferi, which I believe, despite the criticism I'm going to offer here in a moment, I think it's a spectacular disappearance to use as a test case, as an experiment with AI trying to examine what happened. I think it's a fantastic case to use. Kristen Deborah Modafferi was an 18-year-old living in Oakland, California. She was originally from North Carolina and was taking photography and dance classes. On June 23rd, 1997, forget how long ago this was now, at 3 p.m., she left her coffeehouse job at the Crocker Galleria in San Francisco. Her coworkers thought she was headed to the beach. But 45 minutes later, Kristen was seen still in the mall. She was never seen again. So if you want the absolute, if you want to see this analysis for yourself, it may be in different places, but where I've seen it, the only place I've seen it is actually on the Find Kristen Modafferi page on Facebook. And it's a long analysis that a guy, I think, connected to Penn State University, used, and I think he has been involved one way or another with Kristen's disappearance independently. I'm not calling him a private investigator, but I think this guy's known about her disappearance for a long time. It's not like he just popped up one day, I'm just going to use AI. I think that he's known about it. I think that maybe even knows the family to that extent. But using AI to analyze Kristen's disappearance and trying to come to a most likely conclusion. And I'm not going to ruin it for you. I want you to go find it and read it for yourself. And you may be thinking, well, this is a lot of work. It's a little technical, but the good news is that you can, just as a human, like I did, read it and somewhat understand it. And I'm hoping that you understand disappearances and disappearance investigations well enough that when you're done reading it, that you understand it well enough to say, yeah, this is a little flawed. I'm not saying the conclusions are wrong or anything, but what's the words I like to use? Wiggle room. There's a lot of wiggle room, and I think in this analysis, it'd be no different than giving, as far as wiggle room. Say you're driving your car and you can turn the steering wheel left or right, but the car doesn't go left and right simply because that is how loose the steering is. You really have to turn the wheel quite a bit before it goes one way or the other. That's kind of how this analysis is. I would say overall, the main problem is that too many items within the disappearance are taken as facts that aren't necessarily facts. It is a fact that she went missing. And there are certainly other facts. She went to work that day, things like that. But on the other hand, as an example, it's taken as a fact that she was seen in the mall later, as I just read, of course, the paragraph, the intro to that episode going way back. That's not a fact. That's an eyewitness account. And we know how many times eyewitnesses get things wrong. And I don't know how long after Kristen's disappearance was this employee or other employees questioned about Kristen's disappearance. I don't know how much later her roommates that she had there at the time were questioned. That all gets, at some point, it goes from being, well, it might really, really be objective to, man, this could really, really be subjective. And I think the problem with the analysis that they did is too many things were taken as facts. And you just can't do that. Every piece of information was treated the same. And maybe if we're to look at this another way as an example, DNA is a fact. And there's one, you find DNA for somebody, there's a 1 in quadrillion chance or whatever it is that it's not, more people than are even on the earth, that it's not the person. Whereas an eyewitness account, it's something, it's information, but you cannot put an eyewitness account and DNA on the same level. Likewise, of course, like polygraphs, lie detectors, dogs going in particular directions. It's information. It may be right, but there is history to show that it could really, really be wrong as well. You cannot treat that stuff the same as like a DNA, like a fingerprint, or like video that actually shows for sure the missing person. And the issue is that in this analysis, it seems to treat all of it the same. And if you go, once again, to findkristenmodafferi.com and you look at it, you're going to see my response. And what I did was how I handled this. I read it, and I said, man, there's some flaws. And I just kind of typed out a couple things on my computer, things that I noticed that I thought were flaws. Then what did I do? Well, being that it was AI that created this analysis, I had ChatGPT on my, whatever it is, my account that I have there. I put the entire analysis for Kristen Modafferi into ChatGPT. Well, what do you think about it? And would you believe ChatGPT pointed out, saw the same flaws I did? It's a true story. That's a true story. Although I would still say, and you should know, yes, behind the scenes, I do ask ChatGPT about disappearance that Unfound is covered. And I will tell you, overall, AI overall is still not very good with disappearances. And it's being illustrated here. It doesn't seem, unless you really, really, really let the program know that some of these things can't be treated the same, it will treat things the same. But then that's the human factor coming in. And so suddenly then it's not black and white analysis. Suddenly it becomes subjective because you're making value judgments on certain things. So it was just funny. I read it, typed out some things. Here's why this analysis isn't good. I ran it through ChatGPT, and it said the same things. It was kind of interesting. So I responded And you can find it. It's right there for everybody to see what my response was. And then the guy who posted it, who did this analysis, responded to me. And you can read what he said, but he essentially says that, you know what, you're right. Not that he didn't realize that, but yep, your criticisms are fair or something like that. So first time I am sure I've ever talked about anything like this on an update episode. So now it has been done. My opinion is that the analysis is not very good. I'm not saying the conclusions that it came to are wrong. In fact, I'm hoping one of these days Kristen Modafferi is found, hopefully alive, and then we can look at all of this and be able to say how close did AI get to this. So there you go. Please go check it out. Even though I don't have a very high opinion of the analysis that was done, you need to check it out because that's the way things are going. All right, moving on. Next update, technically updates. Molly Miller, Colt Haynes. Molly Miller and Colt Haynes were respectively 17 and 21 years old from Wilson, Oklahoma. They'd only known each other a week, but might have been headed toward a relationship. On the evening of July 7th, 2013, Molly and Colt were passengers in a car that got involved in a police chase. The vehicle got ditched, and the driver made it back to his house the next morning, while Molly and Colt seemingly got lost, trying to call friends to pick them up. They were never seen again. Well, in the previous update episode, back to the end of April of 2026, the big update is that the remains were found of Molly and Colt. So it took not quite 13 years for their remains to be found. The remains were found not far from where the car was ditched back in 2013. But the update here now for the past 4 months regarding these two young people is that still we have no causes of death for either of them. I think that's probably bad news. We don't have anything that is leaked out regarding, oh, it's this, oh, it's that. So we may be headed in a direction like with Tom Brown where we may never know, even though I know there are people out there who think they know, and with Tom Brown. We're never going to get an official cause of death that anybody in a position of authority, in a position of objectivity is going to sign off on anything. We may never get that for Molly and Colt. No cause of death yet. What's significant, though, to me is just within maybe the last 3 weeks, there was an obituary for Colt. To my knowledge, there has not been an obituary for Molly yet. If I've missed it, I apologize. But Colt's came out. I think I saw it the day it was published on Facebook. And what's interesting to me is that the date of death is essentially the day they went missing. So remember that this car chase started on July 7th and it went over into July 8th, past midnight into July 8th. And Colt's day of death is given as July 8th of 2013. So even though there have been stories, well, they got picked up and this happened and that happened and everything else, we are now back to the idea officially on the death certificate that at least for Colt Haynes, he died not long after the chase ended. Now, how long after? Of course, we have these phone calls and everything else. But he died the day after the chase started. Chase started on the evening, late evening of July 7th. It goes into July 8th. Con Nip makes it home. Molly and Colt are still out there. They're on the phone trying to talk to people. People try to go look for them. Eventually the car's found, but they're not. And then here in 2026, their remains are found. My understanding, no more than a quarter mile away from the car. I've still not seen any information about how far each was from each other. How close was Molly's body to Colt's body? I have no idea. But I think it is significant that Colt's date of death is the day, at least for me, that I thought that the disappearances occurred. I was hoping they were still alive. Obviously, they weren't. And it's very sad, but this is another disappearance that I think I got correct. And it's going to be very difficult if we get to a point where the causes of death are never determined. Now, on top of that, I've not seen anything regarding, well, they were buried. Of course, if they were buried, then, of course, it's foul play. Somebody did something. But I don't think so. I think their remains were just out there. And just all the other searches had missed them. And that's not that surprising to me. I understand that their remains might have been charred, but not because somebody tried to burn them, but because there have been brush fires that have occurred in that area since 2013. So that's the update. And if Molly's obituary comes out, that will be on a future update episode. Next update, Jody Huizentrout. Jody Sue Huizentrout was a 27-year-old from Mason City, Iowa. She was a reporter and had dreams of hosting a national news show. In the early morning hours of June 27th, 1995, Jody left for work. However, she never arrived. Jody's possessions would later be found strewn across her apartment's parking lot. She was never seen again. The update here is that there's probably a guy, his name is Steve Ridge, who is a private investigator of some type out there, who has appeared on Fox News and elsewhere talking about Jody's disappearance and how he knows this and how he knows that and all of that. I'm not inclined to believe he knows anything. He knows any more than any of you do. You know, he has ideas, and you should know I've never spoken to him. I've read what he's said. I've looked at his body of work. Not impressive to me. He is not affiliated with the people at findjody.com. You know, he's not in that circle who, at least in my opinion, those people over there, of course, all these people, in fact, I've known a few of them for many, many years now. Caroline Lowe and that group, of course, I've known Caroline over 10 years now. Steve Ridge is not affiliated with them. They don't work together. They do not collaborate. And you should really, really keep that in mind. I don't think that Steve Ridge is a person in good standing with... I have criticisms of the Mason City Police Department, but still, they are not affiliated with Steve Ridge. All of you should know that. Just don't. Of course, when I start talking about this, many of you know I come into a topic like this, maybe with. Kind of not the most objective of eyes, given my 10 years of experience with private investigators, whether they're licensed or not, or you just want to call them independent investigators, or you just want to call them lay people who get involved, or you just want to call them amateur sleuths, whatever you want to call them. For the most part, I usually have a very negative opinion of all those people, mainly because they have no disappearance experience. None. Investigation experience, really looking at why people go missing. And as I've tried to do, and I did this in the Q&A episode going back to when was it? April, late March, April. where I freely put out my predictions on disappearances. I want to be judged on how much I know disappearances. And I think one of the ways that you can show how much you know about disappearances is by making predictions, public predictions about disappearances and what the resolution is going to be. And then when those disappearances get resolved, were you right or not? And in that Q&A episode from, like I said, this spring, I listed the disappearances that I've looked at that I got right. I've listed the disappearances that I've gotten wrong. I put my work out there for everybody to see. And so when people get involved and I say I'm not sure they know what they're talking about, and maybe I get some crap for that. Well, what's your record? Where's your prediction? What have you done? What predictions have you made that have ended up being true? What disappearances have you solved? What is your success rate? Inquiring minds want to know. And the truth is that just in general, it's very sad, I don't think Jodi Huisentruit's disappearance is any closer to getting solved than it was in 1996. That is nothing against the people at findjodi.com. Of course, I've taken a hard look at it myself. I haven't been to Mason City, Iowa or anything. But, so I guess I deserve some criticism myself. But I've known about her disappearance since very early on. It was the first disappearance I ever looked at when I got on the internet, when it came to my part of the world in Pennsylvania. It just doesn't seem to me we're any closer than we were. That's nothing against Caroline Lowe and the rest of them. It's very, very, very difficult. So when people start coming out and making pronouncements and everything, it's just like, well, then just go solve it. You're on TV, you're making all these pronouncements and everything else. Then do something. Do something. And, but I'm pretty sure nothing is getting done. It's a very difficult disappearance. And what makes it difficult is that it's very possible, if not probable, that it was just some one-time kook thing, guy obsessed with Jodi, found out where she lived, went there, waited for her, abducted her, and before then and since then has not committed one violent crime at all. Maybe he might have a background in maybe being a peeping Tom or something like that. Maybe DUIs or something. But when it comes to actually assault or anything, it would not surprise me if that's the type of guy who did it. Guy just had no violence and just got obsessed with Jodi and did something about it. It's to me, very possible. And that's what makes her disappearance difficult. Moving on. Next update, Brian Schaefer. Brian Randall Schaefer was a 27-year-old from Columbus, Ohio. He was in medical school, and his mother died not long before he went missing. At around 2 a.m. on April 1st, 2006, Brian's friends prepared to leave a bar they had visited together. They called him, but Brian never responded. He was never seen again, at least here in the United States, probably one of the most well-known disappearances of like a layperson or common average American. Probably one of the most well-known of the 21st century, up there with Jennifer Kesse, Maura Murray. The update is that the woman who I would say has become the expert on Brian's disappearance, she has done so much work over the years. She is now starting her own podcast with her husband. And, of course, that is Kelly Kokenauer. And she used to go as Kelly Bruce, by the way. And when she appeared some years ago on Unfound, but she got married, I was actually invited to the wedding, and I got to go, which was really a surprise that she invited me. It seems like yesterday. up in there in Georgia. But she is starting a podcast. I'm not sure, though, if the first episode has come out or not. But she put some pictures up. She has this fancy studio that she and her husband put together. It's so fancy compared to me just sitting here right in the middle of a room in my condo here. But very happy for her. But the podcast is called the Dead or Alive Podcast. Of course, Brian is going to be a topic, but she is assured, man, I'm not going to tell you some of the other disappearances, mysteries, murders, or whatever she's going to do. But she and her husband are going to be talking about a lot of other cases. So Kelly, once again, with her husband, are going to be starting this new podcast, and it is called the Dead or Alive Podcast. I hope you will check it out. Next update, Lonnie Rogers. Lonnie Ray Rogers, Lonnie to those who loved her most, was a 29-year-old from Sagertown, Pennsylvania. She was deaf and the mother of two. On the night of January 7th, 1981, Lonnie was at home with her children and husband. After putting the kids to bed, Lonnie's husband claimed she left with another man. She was never seen again. Well, we now know that that is not true. I believe in a previous update, Lonnie's husband at the time, has come forward recently in the past year, maybe even longer ago than that, and now admits that he killed Lonnie. She's still not been found, but there is an article that was written. There's some court stuff going on right now, and I am going to read an article. There's several articles that have been written this summer. I'm just picking one of them. Nearly 9 months after Clinton Rogers confessed to killing his wife in 1981, a Pennsylvania court has rejected his attempt to get the murder case against him thrown out, moving his daughter one step closer in a decades-long fight for justice. For Bedford Heights teacher Allison Duker, who was the guest of Unfound a few years ago, the ruling against her father brought a sense of relief after weeks of uncertainty. I felt like I haven't breathed since July 8th, Diker told 3 News Investigates. I haven't had a good sleep, good deep releasing breath, because I've been so worried that he'll get out. Rogers' case has been making its way through the Pennsylvania court system, where authorities say the killing took place. His defense team had filed a petition for writ of habeas corpus, essentially asking the court to dismiss the case by arguing prosecutors did not have enough evidence to take Rogers to trial. The petition was dismissed this week, clearing the way for the criminal case to proceed to trial unless a plea agreement is reached. I feel relief. I feel peace, Diker said. I feel positive about the next steps in the process. The ruling marks the latest milestone in a case that consumed much of Diker's life. Her mother, Lonnie Rogers, disappeared in 1981. Diker spent nearly 44 years without knowing what happened to her before Clinton Rogers confessed to law enforcement last November of 2025, that he had killed his wife. He was subsequently arrested and charged in her death. Even after the confession, Diker's wait for justice is not over. As Rogers challenged the case against him, Diker said she feared not only that he could be released, but what could happen if he was. So he confessed to murdering Lonnie, and now he doesn't want to go to trial or anything, and I guess maybe he's trying to take it back or something. I know that I remind of my mother. I look like my mother. People say I have the mannerisms of her, and I'm proud of that, Diker explained. And what made me very nervous is if they let him out, what vengeance he might have. Would he come my way and for my family? And that's an unimaginable fear. The court's decision removes that immediate uncertainty and pushes the case another step toward the trial. But Diker says she knows her family's journey is not finished. I'm still eyes on the prize, she said. There's still a lot of work to be done, and it's absolutely not time to relax. For Diker, the decades she spent searching for answers have also shaped what she hopes to do next. The whole process has been a big learning experience for me. It's given me courage. It's given me inspiration. And now I intend to pay that forward. Diker says she wants to use that experience to support other families still searching for missing loved ones or fighting for answers. Trial date for Clinton Rogers does not appear to have been set. So that is an article. Like I said, many articles have been written this summer about all of this. And as I stated midway through this article, it seems that he confessed, and now he's being charged with murder. And now, I mean, in layman's terms, it's like he's saying, like, wait, hold on, just a gosh darn second. I guess he's trying to take it back or something. I don't think anybody is surprised by this from a standpoint of, I think everybody thought when the episode came out that Clinton did something to Lonine, even though I don't think there was necessarily any evidence of it. It's about a stereotypical, the man said this kind of disappearance that you ever want to see. And, he is now saying that he did it. Of course, the end of the year, I think he had his own motivations for doing so, and I don't think it has anything to do with a guilty conscience. Unfortunately, though, given that he is acting now, this is not a situation where, if we go to like Susan and Natasha Carter from a few years ago, of course, they were missing for quite a while, and then Susan's new husband, Larry, whatever his last name was, I don't have it here in my notes, he was very much near the end of his life. He wanted to get it off his chest. He confessed to killing Susan and Natasha, and then he said, yeah, you're going to find them in the backyard or wherever they ended up being on his property. This, with Lonine Rogers, is not like that. I don't think this is a situation where Clinton Rogers wanted to get something off his chest because he has a conscience, he feels guilty, he's worried about his soul. Nothing like that. I think this manipulation of the system, and I think if you go to Allison's Facebook page or Lonine Rogers' page on Facebook, you can see Allison's own insights into all of that. What this all means, though, is given that he is acting like this now, Clinton is, it seems doubtful that he is going to lead anybody to the place where Lonine is. Now, he may have said already, why put her in a trash bin? And if so, she's in a landfill somewhere. Even so, this doesn't give us a lot of hope that Lonine's remains are going to be found. So this is not going to be like Natasha and Susan Carter. Doesn't seem like it. But if there are more updates down the road, and it does seem like there will be if this is going to go to trial or whatever, I will fill you in on a future update episode. Moving on. Next up, Paul Sanders. Paul David Sanders was a 17-year-old from Mesa, Arizona. He was originally from Missouri and very athletic. On August 14th, 2001, someone, the person may or may not have been Paul, driving Paul's truck was pulled over by law enforcement in Tucson. A chase ensued in which the driver escaped. The truck was later found wrecked several miles away with no signs of Paul. He was never seen again. I've done a few updates on this disappearance, Paul's disappearance, but it's been a while. And so to remind you that not long after the episode came out, one of my assistants, her name is Carrie, and a longtime listener, in fact, member of the think tank, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. Her name is Jill. They got together with Paul's sister, who was the guest, and they have been working on this very, very diligently, talking to many different people in Arizona, different law enforcement organizations, departments, whether county or local or wherever else. And so what I did was I asked Jill and Carrie, what am I allowed to say regarding the work that is getting done? I would say from my insight, I'm not saying it's definitive, but certainly they've shown, when I say they, I mean Carrie, Jill, and Paul's sister, the work they're doing, that this is going more and more toward Paul probably wasn't driving the truck than he was. It's going in that direction. My insight, I don't want to necessarily speak for them. That's my insight into that. I have to admit, when the episode came out, if you'd have told me that, I would have said that's probably not where I'm going with this. But I trust Carrie, of course. I've gotten to know Jill fairly well. Although I've never met her in person, she and I have talked about several disappearances over the years with her background. And, of course, I interviewed Paul's sister. That I have to believe them. And I know, because I know they're all quality people and they're not prone to sensationalism. So if that's kind of in the direction where this is going, I guess I have to go with them. I wouldn't say, like I said, there's anything definitive. So, like I said, I asked them, what am I allowed to say? And so Jill sent me the following, and I'm just going to read it. She said, number one, as of November 2025, they added a new team member who is primarily focused on media and marketing, getting Paul's name out there. It has brought a lot of promising results from other people that were in the Globe community. So this is, once again, that area of Arizona. And this new person helping them, he also has ties to Globe, Arizona. Number two, in January of 2026, we had state coverage by an investigative reporter where we had the first interview of the father, Paul's father, in roughly 25 years, publicly done. And Paul's father is, I don't know how, he's not a person of interest or suspect, but the question is, has he really said everything that he knows about all this? Let's just leave it at that. Number three, and in July of 2026, so just a month ago, Carrie had an in-person interview with the head of the missing persons department in Mesa. Paul's sister joined, and so did I, where we got to sit down, look at the file, ask questions. At that point in time, it was designated that they do believe that they would like to have a homicide investigator on the case as well, and that has happened as of last week. So you can tell this group, I have nothing to do with this. I know these people, but I'm not doing any of this. I'm just doing the reporting on it. They're doing spectacular work, and I'm just reporting on what they're doing. There's a lot else going on, but this is all I'm allowed to say. So let's just leave it at that. So I'm not. I just want to make sure they are getting all the credit. I'm just reporting. So there you go. So this goes from Paul's truck gets pulled over in 2001. Truck takes off. Maybe as you're hearing that, you're thinking of all of the police chases that have video these days, especially with dash cams and badge cams and everything. People have very popular YouTube channels with just those kinds of videos. That kind of situation, and the truck gets away, and whoever's driving it gets away. The truck is eventually found. Whoever's driving it, not found. And here we are in 2026, and we're to the point where a homicide investigator is being designated for this case 25 years later. It's all very notable, good, solid work. I don't know where it's going. I would say it again, a little surprised, but given that I know the character of these people, I do not doubt their work. So there you go. That is the disappearance of Paul Sanders. And the last update that has anything to do with the podcast, I will then next do the Unfound Now episodes, of course, the monthly series that comes out on YouTube. But the last podcast update is for Tony Schwark. And I'll just read it. Almost exactly 3 years ago, this podcast examined the case of Tony Schwark and two other men who disappeared while taking a boat trip from the Bahamas to Florida on December 6th. Of 1986, we now re-examine this still unsolved mystery with a new interview as part of our ongoing series. Tony's disappearance was included in the Atlantic series that I did this summer. I don't think I'll ever be able to explain how much I enjoyed doing that. I never could have guessed when the series started that it would go 10 episodes, with most of those being disappearances. And, of course, we had the interview with Caleb from the CGIS, which was spectacular. It ended up being so much more than I thought it was going to be, and being able to feature so many of these disappearances, really show you what was going on off the coast of Florida, the Atlantic coast during the 1980s. And, of course, years ago, Tony's disappearance was featured, but I had to include it again. Just had to. And then his sister made another appearance. The update is just simply that looking at Tony's disappearance in a vacuum, maybe not knowing about any of these other disappearance stories, you could be suspicious about it. And I think I was when it first came out. Well, did something go on? And certainly something of a foul play nature still could have gone on. There are no facts to dispute that. But when you put it in with all of those other disappearances, Richard Urex and the rest of them, for me, it pushes me more toward the idea for Tony's disappearance that this was an accident. No guarantees, no facts to go any particular way, but it was interesting to me. This is why you need to leave your minds open at least a little bit when it comes to these disappearances. This is what drives me nuts about, if you go to certain places on the internet, everybody is so damn sure of everything. And certainly I have strong opinions about what I think happened in each of Unfound's disappearances, the ones that I've gotten to know the best, all the ones featured on this podcast. But I don't argue with anybody. Try to talk like adults, keep it PG rated, keep the tone down. And with some people, that's difficult. But this is a perfect example of this. That when you look at a case in a vacuum, it can seem like one thing. But when you look at the totality of what else was going on at the time, and you hear about all these other people in similar situations, in boats or in planes, maybe involved in drug dealing or drug trafficking or not, it opens up your mind to other possibilities. And even myself I have been surprised by the resolutions to some of these disappearances. So this is one of those things that drives me nuts. Everybody's so damn sure about so much, and nobody should be. If you're so dang sure, then start putting your stats out there and show how dang smart you are. So Tony, still missing. We're coming up on 40 years. Very sad. But I was happy to include him in the series, have his sister on again. And I think we got to see his disappearance in a little bit of a different light. And that concludes the updates for the podcast episodes. I'll now go to the Unfound Now disappearances. There are only a couple of them. The first update is for Michael Monkey Vaughn. This is the little boy who was supposed to be being watched and seemingly, allegedly walked off. He was 5 years old. And this happened in Fruitland, Colorado, back in the summer of 2021. There was a recent article, some coverage done in July, and I'm going to read that. And of course, there's been quite a bit that has gone on regarding his disappearance, with people being charged, and then the charges being dropped, and then the charges coming in again. The most important part is Mikey, alive or deceased, has not been found. The article. 5 years after Michael Monkey Vaughn, once again 5 years old, disappeared from his Fruitland neighborhood, his family is still searching for the answer they have wanted since the summer of 2021. Where's Michael? The anniversary marks 5 birthdays, 5 Christmases, 5 years without knowing what happened to Michael. Mikey disappeared on July 27th of 2021 after leaving his home in Fruitland. Within hours, the Fruitland Police Department, Idaho State Police, and dozens of volunteers launched an extensive search, combing neighborhoods, fields, and nearby areas. Despite weeks of searching and thousands of tips, investigators found no trace of Michael. By late 2021, investigators announced they believed Michael had been abducted. The investigation took a major turn nearly 16 months later. On November 11th of 2022, investigators searched a home just a few blocks from Michael's home after receiving what police described as a very credible tip from someone living nearby. The following day, police arrested 35-year-old Sarah Wondra, W-O-N-D-R-A, who lived at the home. She was charged with failure to notify authorities of a death, despite investigators never recovering Michael's body. Police also identified Sarah Wondra's ex-husband, Stacy Wondra, along with 2 other individuals as suspects or persons of interest in Michael's disappearance. Nearly 3 years later, on October 31st, 2025, prosecutors charged Stacy Wondra with first-degree murder, second-degree kidnapping, and destruction of evidence in connection with Michael's disappearance. Wondra pleaded not guilty in November 2025. His jury trial is scheduled to begin September 14th. While the case has moved closer to a courtroom, one question remains unanswered. Michael has never been found. His family continues to ask the public not to forget him. Mikey is still missing. We do not have answers to where he is. Michael's mom, Brandy Vaughn, said, "Please keep sharing his beautiful smile, beautiful face. He's out there somewhere, and we need him home. Do not forget about him." So that's the article. So we have this trial coming up regarding the disappearance of Mikey Vaughn. And as you heard, the charges do include murder. What do I think about this? I'm not sure what to think. It very well could be that these people did something to Mikey. I don't know why. Of course, we can't go to common sense on this. So he just walked away and they decided to harm him. Did they accidentally hit him with the car? Did he wander up to their house? Do any of these people have a history of abusing children? It does seem that these people were involved with drugs or something in the past, but that doesn't necessarily translate to they harm children. I will tell you, to me, there's not enough evidence, at least publicly, to think this. Now, if you're going to tell me they found DNA of Mikey's inside where these people live, or they found a piece of clothing that Mikey was wearing that day on the property, and that can be proven through DNA or whatever, okay, then I guess they're on the right track. But just because these people are strange, and I kind of just got the idea that this was kind of a tit for tat between 2 people who are divorced, it just doesn't seem, what I know about the public information, that this is a very solid case at all. And although I did not go back and check my notes from when this was an Unfound, now going back to 2021, I do not believe that my choice, my insight was that a neighbor did this. Now, we might have to put this in. This in the Ed got this one wrong column, maybe. But I will remind you that even if they find the Wondrous guilty, that doesn't mean they did it. So remember that. In addition, it doesn't seem like these people are a bunch of supervillains or anything. It seems that if they did something to Mikey, Mikey's remains would have been found by now. They haven't. So I have my doubts about all of this. But, sir, of course, the prosecutor has way more information than I do. But we also know that sometimes prosecutors can feel pressured to go to trial without enough evidence, and then things fall apart, just like what happened with the Alyssa Turney and Michael Turney trial. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Whatever is going to be done, let's hope it's correct. Moving on. The final update for both the podcast and Unfound now is for Heidi Plank. I think in a previous update episode, I told you that I was doing my best to try to talk to somebody connected to Heidi, a family member, a friend, husband, ex-husband, whoever, about her disappearance. Remember, she's not been found yet. She is the woman who was at her son's football game or soccer game, left at halftime with her dog, was seen in downtown L.A. with her dog. Then she goes missing, and the dog is found like on the 20-something floor of some building. Was it a condo building, office building, something along those lines? She's never been found. There's been rumors of drugs, and there was some huge party there, and something happened to her at this party. And some LAPD recruits went out to a landfill, were looking for her. Still nothing. There's really not been anything, what I would call cold hard facts, pretty much since she went missing, despite all the sensationalism and everything. Well, there is a website. I emailed it a few times. Finally, somebody got back to me. I think I emailed them in like January or something. And then in June, I finally got a response. I'm not going to read every word. Suffice to say that at this point, they're not interested in doing any media. The people responsible for the website, I'm guessing at least a few of those people are connected to New Heidi in some way. And that's just the way it is right now. Certainly, Heidi's disappearance has been talked about out there in YouTube and podcast land. But to my knowledge, nobody connected to her has really done any interviews, sit-down interviews like what we do here at Unfound. If they have, I've missed it. But to me, they just said, no, we're not interested. They were perfectly fine. I'm not mad. I'm not angry. Disappointed. But totally they're right. They can talk to whoever they want. That maybe now they know that I'm interested. Maybe that can happen way down the road. Of course, I hope Heidi is found alive first. But I finally got that response. Was not the response that I wanted, but at least I got one. And it was cordial. I accept it. If they're listening to this right now, not angry, just disappointed, I'm ready to talk anytime they are ready to talk. And that completes the updates. If you could now pause whatever you are doing as I now read off all of the missing people featured on Unfound and Unfound Now. Suzanne Lyle, Jason Jolkowski, Jesse Foster, Rose Marie Gayhart, Ben Charles Padilla, Kelly Rothwell, Joshua Guimond, Donnie Smatlack, Andrea Bowman, Robin Abrams, Regina Marie Boss, Christopher Hyde, Jeff Nichols, Rebecca Gary, James Walker, Teresa Butler, Charlotte Paulus, Lola Catherine Fry, Eric Franks, Jeff Joseph, Donna Mikolenko, David Medot, Kent Monroe, and Omar Shearer. Claudia Wells, Peggy and Patty McDaniel, Shannon Turner, Brandy Wells, Cleshindra Hall, Ronnie Russell, Esther Westenbarger, Shane Fell, Ashley Eifert, Brandon Williams, Craig Freer, Pamela Golden, Chip Campbell, Amanda DeGuio, the passengers and crew of Flight 370, April Pitzer, Jennifer Wilkerson, Kent Jacobs, Aaron Gilbert, Tammy Leppert, Crystal Morrison, Chris Turner, Linda Carroll, Nikki McCown, Helen Diamond, Laura Bible and Ashley Freeman, Lucinda Hewells, Ashley Kohler, Debbie Lowe, Patrick Beavers, Clinton Nelson, Troy Galloway, Patty Action, Danielle Bell, Evelyn Hartley, Dow Phillips, Tyler Stice, Bill Underhill, Patricia Taylor, Aaron Barnard, Jeremy Burt, Brian Sullivan, Nikki Wells, Marina Bolter, Mandy Stokes, Greg Brooks, Rebecca Henderson, Dominic Holly Grisham, Tiffany Daniels, Nicholas Masucci, Donald Irwin, Billy DiSilvestro, Renee Yergain, Mikkel Biggs, Al Copper, J.R. Mullahan, Jamie Bowen, Travis Robertson, Rosemary Rapp, Kristen Modafferi, Zoe Campos, Sean Ginyard, Thomas Brown, Amanda Fravel, Julie Early, Ellen Sloan, Renee Lamanna, Nico Lisi, Leah Peebles, Melissa Hasley, Kimberly Raymer, Stephen Kocher, Bonnie Joseph, Immaculate Basil, Bobby Campbell, Kimberly Norwood, Alyssa Turney, Bobby Tennyson, Dale Kerstetter, Lacey Buenfil, Peggy McGuire, Jansen Brewer and Daniel Braden, Robert Wayne Cox, Lucas Degerness, Stephen Adams, Ashley Summers, Bonnie Dagus and Jeremy Dagus, Judith Emke, Jessica Hamby, Tim Beauchart, Devin Bond, Juanita Nelson, Desiree Ferris, Angie Yarnell, Deborah Asbury, Sean Koski, Mary Lands, Devin Brown Busetta, Shanna Boydo, Travis Murrow, Keith Fetter, Layla Faulkner, Megan Lancaster, Kelly Sims, Jack Hemby, Barbara Frame, Dory Ann Myers, Austin Pivo, Christine Hamilton, Monica Appleton, Jonathan Estes, Molly Miller, and Colt Haynes, Donnie Martin III, Kamisha Hollis, Lisa Wallace, Tammy McKittrick, Julie Say, Stephanie Clemens, Andy Chapman, Trevor Nichols, Tiffany Joseph, Tyler North, David Kesey, Lucera Sarabia, Brandy Myers, J.L. Hamblin, Bradley Allen, Timothy Guy, Janelle Matthews, Ronald McNutt, Cameron Remmer, Tammy Arthur, and Chad Peters, Jesse Ross, Lisa Shuttleworth, Jackson Miller, Patrick Reed, Jeremy Goodwin, Mary Jane Van Gilder, Phyllis Corbin, Eric Alvarado, Cassandra Ramirez, April Andrews, David Hardy Jr., Dennis Lushbaugh, Christy Nichols, Chris Sanders, Danielle Sleeper, Julie Weflin, Shelva Rafty, Rodney Kaiser, Chris Mittendorf and Christina Branham, Gregory Howes, Brian Cook, Charles Thompson, Jessica Garino, Jacob Weeks, Jackie Bucky Letney, Joe Bain, Vanessa Oren, Jennifer Casper Ross, Robbie Hurt, Unique Harris, Doug Jones, Deborah Bowman, Bradley Brooks, Angela Green, Jody Husentrut, Brennan Smokey, Rouse Chapman, Marion Hurley, Gayla Shaper, Caleb Powell, Chelsea Cobo, Bonnie Santiago, T.J. Murray, Noah Davis, Patty Dudek, Ben Archer, Jake Lachelet, Sky Burnley, Kayleen Oling, Stephanie Hartwell, Nylene Marshall, Kaya Taylor, Pearl Pinson, Brenda Condon, Alwyn Albright, Sky Tosick, Sandy Knipe, Brian Schaefer, Teresa Woolard, Toby Anderson, David Schrader, Chance Engelbert, Julianne Gillay, Rachel Sierks, Sean Antill, Randy Duran, Rashawn Francis, Amanda Ward Romine, Crystal Bailey, Brenda Sika, Laverta Sorrell, Nicholas Shin, Kevin Newen, Ashley Simpson, Leanne Hosberg, Alicia Markovich, Audrey Heron, Lonine Rogers, Beatrice Viela, Ali Lowitzer, Jamie Peterson, Belinda Blaniar, Jordan Carvalho, Christian Balky Thompson, Paul Sanders, Jennifer Perry, Andrea Knabel, Sebastian Kelly, Marianne Verdecchia, Marcella Krolsey, and Mary Regan, Sue Swedell, Mark Heimbaugh, Dub and Chance Wackerhagen, Kimberly Wilson Talley, Harry Milligan, Paul Egan, Steve Davis, Douglas Crawford, Rhonda Smith, Ryan Stuka, Daniel Villarreal, Mary Watkins, Bradley Strassner, Justin Gaines, Jacqueline Cooper, Holly White, Michaela Bally, Chase Lackey, Belinda Brewster, the Pickering Six, Jay Boyle, Michael Cummins, Danny Higgins, Chad Smith, Robbie Rumbolt, and Jamie Lafaber. Brenda Davidson, Milda McQuillan, Kyle Fleischman, Paris Hobson, Bernard Rusness and Peggy McKay, Jessica Stacks, Natasha and Susan Carter, Angela Freeman, Mark Allen, Mary Cox, Jamie Valdez, Jace Martin, Brandon Rashar, Keith Call, and Sandra Haley, Evelyn Piper, Leslie Allen and children, Matthew Braswell, Brandon Roberts, Emily Richards, Bo Mann, Judith Devers Hyder, Barbara McCrae, Judy Brown, and Richard Riesenberg, Jason Landry, Athel Turner, Treveline Evans, Alan Glasgow, Barbara Cotton, Tony Schwark, Sean Dickerson, Patricia Otto, David Wagoner, Mara Murray, Brian Vargo, Bianca Carrasco, Paige Renkoski, Betty Tepfer, Joel Akridge, Brenda Lambert, Aaliyah Boomer, Donnie Atkins, Brandon Barron, Jesse Farber, Christopher Dalfett, John Spira, Patsy Clark, Arlen Bynum, Irene Gakwa, Kenny Weaver, Ashley Higgins, Camille Dardanes, Pauline Diaz, Jamie Lee, Lisa Green, Larry Goodman, Irma McCurcheon, Glenda Griffin, Nancy Garcia, Kim Moreau, Carl Pope, Elenia Carisi, Sylvia Galvin, April Wiss, Ashley Linden, Jaden Carpenter, Ricky Bryant, David Fugati, Stevie Hammerly, and Joe Grashner, Aidan Clune, Brianna Maitland, James Leitka, Ray Fausto Leppi, Elaine Johnson, Carl Schooner Jr., Valerie Ingorvaya, Clinton Thomas Sr., Zach Carey, Shannon Collins, David Kallenberger, Blanca Elisa Robertson, Melinda Lopez, Marlo Christopher Gully, Matthew Keith, Christopher McNeil, Rob McLaughlin, Deanna Merrifield, Erica Hall, Clint Walker, Lene Westbrook, Joe Bushling, Jonathan Haddon, Tatiana Lupich, Jared McCulloch, Keith Mann, Wendy Gessing, Sue Braddock, Dwayne Thomas, Joey Offit, Richard Hitchcock, Tiffany Reed, Kenneth Plaisted, Layla Santinello, Vicky Smock, Keith Schmidt, Matthew Tuttle, Sally Stone, Aaron Derbyshire, Tanya Sadecki, Anthony Reyes, Tanova Ross, Marty Evans, Zachary Vidal, Leo Wagner, Brittany Shank, Ian Rogers, Corinna Slusser, Benjamin Ridley, William Charles Jones Sr., DJ Hamaker, Noreen Brown, Paul Holmes, Brandy Crouch, Sylvia Lewowski, Amanda Thacker, Thomas Doolin, Tyler Johnson, Melissa Trumpy, Keith Robertson, Brianna Vibert, Manuel Bea, Haidar Abushakra, Tanner Sharp, Dawn Holt, Rex Douglas, Angela Westbury, Teresa Hickman, Charles Hanna, Clyde Hanna, Michael Wilson, Eugene Pavey, Melanie Pavey, Glennis Bernhard, Ann Latarte, Tammy Christie, Al Wharton, Charles Soren, Gerald Lancaster, Richard Urex, Frank Doherty, Jamie Mulemans, Devlin Tate, Leanne Falk, Linda Stoltfus, Erica Lloyd, Mary Lane Carter, Stephanie Hollingsworth, Corey Dale Moore, Alan White, Jason Landry, Aaliyah Scheibel, Kirsten Brueggemann, Mark Pinella, Cynthia Baal Traore, Louis Davila, Candy Gonzalez, Justin Sywick, Michael Vaughn, Wendy Gessing, Shannon Miller, Glenda Parton, and Dwayne Selby, Heidi Plank, Stephen Salazar, Lindsay Shobalok, Jordan Simeon, Marie Peter Toltz, Dylan Rounds, Dana Smithers, Gregory Peterson, Caitlin Rose Case, Lorenzo Holmes Jr., Elizabeth Capaldi, Christopher Miller, John Tipton, Maya Blanton, Bao Fan, Shauna Helford, Andrew France, Kay Alana Turner, Andrew Griffin, Fang Jin and John Fitzpatrick, Reno Long, Chelsea Grimm, Caitlin Alice Massey White, Thomas Irwin, Tyler Goodrich, Caleb Harris, Sebastian Rogers, Nadia Cole, Aaron Ong, and daughter Soraya, Taylor Casey, William Orlano, Cynthia McCoy, Robert Williams, Belva Day, Mason McKay, Joseph Gagnon, Alyssa Petrov, Travis Decker, Stephen Wright, Ruben Carranza, Richard Cleaves, James Cole, Aliasia Bolia, Yesenia Norman, Petro Kuko, Neil McCasland and Monica Reza, Lee Longmire, Kevin Darrell Green, Chang Cho, David Marsh. Please, if you have the time and the passion for any of these still unsolved disappearances, please contact these families. They need all the help they can get. And that's the program. I'm Ed Dunsel, and you've been listening to Unfound.